ceremonies are now arriving at the Capitol. There is the president's limousine now. The president left the White House with the First Lady just a few moments ago. The Vice President is in the car with him, and the senior senator of New York, Charles Schumer, who is also essentially the master of ceremonies at today's inaugural events at the Capitol. Here's the car now approaching the Capitol. Our Jan Crawford is inside the Capitol now as a number of people are beginning to arrive. Jan, what do you see there?
Well, Scott, just a few moments ago, almost all of it seemed like the United States Senate just walked by here to file outside and take their seats. They're on the West Front to await these ceremonies that, of course, will be coming up. And then after the president gives his inaugural address, he will come in here. He will come through the rotunda, walk by that bust of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and then into Statuary Hall for a tradition that really is perhaps the most exclusive lunch you can imagine. All of the nation's leaders, the president, the vice president, congressional leaders, Supreme Court justices, their spouses, they will all gather for a lunch to toast the president and his new administration, putting politics aside for at least a brief moment.
Thank you very much, Jan. As we watch the president's motorcade approaching the Capitol, let me give you a little bit of an advanced look on what you're going to be seeing as the inauguration ceremonies proceed. As we mentioned, Senator Charles Schumer of New York will be the master of ceremonies. He will have a short speech, and then he will be introducing Myrlie Evers Williams, who is a former chair of the NAACP and the widow of Medgar Evers, the NAACP Mississippi field secretary who was gunned down in 1963, one of the great heroes of the civil rights movement. Myrlie Evers Williams will be giving the invocation at the beginning of the ceremonies, and then we will see Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who is one of the newer associate justices on the Supreme Court. She will be delivering the oath of office to the vice president. This is Beyonce coming in now, and we will be hearing from her. There are several musical performances today. After the vice president is sworn in, James Taylor will be singing America the Beautiful. And then following that, John Roberts Jr., the Chief Justice of the United States, will administer the oath of office to the president. We just saw 88-year-old Jimmy Carter arriving on the scene. Former presidents are almost always in attendance at these events, but today, George Herbert Walker Bush and his son George W. Bush are not in attendance. The elder Mr. Bush has recently been released from a month-long stay in the hospital due to a respiratory ailment, and so both Bush families announced that they would not be able to attend because of the poor health of the elder George Bush. The president, after taking the oath of office, will deliver his second inaugural address. Following that, Kelly Clarkson will be singing My Country 'Tis of Thee.
Ladies and gentlemen, and then the Chief Justice of the United States and the Associate Justices of the Supreme Court of the United States.
And these are the Supreme Court justices being led by Chief Justice of the United States, John Roberts Jr., who delivered the oath in 2009. Here is the First Lady as she is coming into the Capitol. As we mentioned earlier, she's wearing a dress and a coat by the American designer Tom Brown. Navy blue, we are told. There is Justice Sotomayor, who was nominated to the Supreme Court by President Obama. She will deliver the oath of office to the vice president. Justice Elena Kagan following her. The 9 justices of the Supreme Court filing in to take their seats. Jan, you are inside the Capitol as we see the vice president coming in. Tell us what you're seeing right now.
Well, Scott, right now we are getting the sense, of course, that the Supreme Court justice is just walking out. And I want to make the point that one of the things when we talk about the president's term and what he can accomplish in his next term in office, the Supreme Court is something that could have an enormous impact on this country because, of course, that can be a president's most lasting legacy. Those justices will remain on that court long after the president has left town. He's already had, as you pointed out, 2 nominations, Justices Sotomayor and Kagan. Most court watchers believe he will get at least 1 more, possibly 2. And of course, if a conservative justice retires, that court now so closely 5-4 with conservatives in the balance, he could change the direction of that court to a more liberal direction.
There are 4 justices who are in their 70s, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg will be 80 in just a few weeks. Here is the president now as he enters the Capitol. Let's watch for just a moment.
I miss this place. What's the ring? All here? Everything okay?
Right. President greeting the leadership of the House and the Senate as he came in. Nancy Cordes is on the west front of the Capitol, which you see before you now. Nancy, how are things looking now that everyone's arriving?
Well, people are in a pretty good mood, Scott. That may have something to do with the weather. Anyone who was here 4 years ago remembers how frigid it was, 28 degrees plus wind chill. It's in the high 30s today. And there was a lot of talk about the fact that a number of Republicans were going to be sitting this inauguration out, staying in their home states. But I'm seeing plenty of Republicans here on the West Front Terrace, including Senate leaders, a number of Senate Republicans who are often at odds with the president, like Rand Paul of Kentucky or Chuck Grassley of Iowa, and the former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, who himself was a candidate for president. It's always interesting to see who gets the choice seats next to the president today. On this Martin Luther King Day, we're seeing a number of African-American leaders, the president of the NAACP, Ben Jealous, Reverend Al Sharpton. We're also seeing 2 of the president's former chiefs of staff, William Daley and Rahm Emanuel.
Nancy, thank you. As we see Mr. and Mrs. Clinton, former President Clinton and Secretary of State Clinton coming into the Capitol. There's Rosalind Carter. We saw President Carter coming in just a short while ago. There will be 2 Nobel Peace Prize winners on the dais today. That would be President Carter, who won the prize in 2002, and of course, President Obama, who has also won the prize. As we watch more dignitaries coming on to the west front of the Capitol, let's go to Nora O'Donnell, our colleague and co-anchor of CBS This Morning. Nora?
And we just saw, of course, President Clinton and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, one of the few sightings we've seen of her since she was out for several weeks after the stomach flu and then the concussion and then the subsequent blood clot that was discovered there. President Clinton, one of 2 former presidents who is there today. As you mentioned, Scott, the 2 President Bushes will not be there today. And we will see, there's a big week, too, for Hillary Clinton as she's going to testify in one of her last acts as Secretary of State on what happened in Benghazi, Libya. That's on Wednesday when she testifies before Congress.
Nora, thank you very much. Listening to the U.S. Army Herald Trumpeters now.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 39th President of the United States, Jimmy Carter and Mrs. Rosalind Carter.
Music that you're hearing in the background is, of course, the U.S. Marine Band, which will celebrate its 215th anniversary this year. The U.S. Marine Band, the longest-running musical organization in the United States of America. Thomas Jefferson described it as the president's own band, and they have adopted that as their motto ever since, the President's Own. Former President Carter having one of the most successful careers ever as a former president, starting the Carter Center, which has been working to promote human rights and peace around the world ever since. And as we mentioned, winning the Nobel Peace Prize in 2002.
You know, Scott, in Africa, for example, Jimmy Carter is one of our most well-known officials because of the work he's done to eliminate disease there, the screw tape worm, different things like that. It's remarkable what he has managed to achieve since he left the White House.
And if we're listening to the Army trumpets, that means someone else of note is about to appear.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 42nd President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton, and Secretary of State, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Hello. Hey, how are you all? Hi.
Former President Clinton, now 66 years old, has made a post-presidential career out of world peace himself with the Clinton Global Initiative, which seeks to address issues of poverty, intolerance, and conflict around the world.
Mrs. Clinton is wearing low heels, by the way, Scott, after that, very terrible spill she had when she slipped, and had that concussion. And people were very worried about her after the blood clot developed, but she looks pretty good. I mean, she looks as if she feels pretty good today, and I think there were a lot of people who wondered if she would be here today, but here she is, the president, of course. He always enjoys himself.
Secretary Clinton, of course, Bob, as you know, came back to work as Secretary of State several days ago, but is in her last few days as Secretary of State, as the president has announced that Senator John Kerry will be his nominee to be the new Secretary of State. As we take this beautiful look at the crowd on the National Mall, let us tell you that our CBS News coverage of the inauguration of the president will continue in just a moment.
With malice toward none,